It has been a fantastic week here in the Bahamas as we, as a PHLY family, have been trailing and tagging along the Sixers for training camp. Today is our final day. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, training camp edition, our final one, presented by Rothman Orthopedics and Bet365 with Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens, Brianna back at the studio in Philadelphia. All of you, as always, in the chat. No, Derek. Derek had to leave early today. We'll be back with Derek on Monday. So it's just you, me, Bree, Kyle. We're all hanging out, and we have a lot to talk about. A lot of Paul George, some Jared McCain in there, Nick Nurse talking. We have a ton of things, and we'll let you know what happened when we were on the slide yesterday. What was it called?
Yeah, baby.
What was that slide called? I have to look it up.
The Abyss. No, I feel like I'm making that up. Something.
Yeah.
Falling something, but whatever. It was steep. It was fun. We'll do a slide report at the end of the show for sure.
Absolutely. But again, our first time hearing from Paul George post-practice. We've heard him in his introductory press conference, hearing him and his thoughts on media day. And finally, we have a chance to speak to him post-practice today. And we've seen him. We just haven't had a chance to really talk to him in this media gathering. But he shared a lot, Kyle, speaking about how he is really sacrificing certain things, willing to do whatever it takes to help the team win. And this basically goes off of what he had to say in his introductory press conference and some of the things that he said on media day. But he tripled down on it this time by talking about him playing with Maxey and Joel Embiid, the sacrifices that he is going to make. He got into the defensive part, which we'll talk about that as well. But he shared a lot of things. Again, when we hear from both he and Embiid, not so much Maxey, because when Maxey says something, you definitely believe it. He goes out there and he does it. You feel like he's honest about all the things that he's saying. But these are two veterans that are, of course, in the later part of their year. Embiid is still in his prime. Paul George is probably on the tail end of his prime since he's still that all-star level player. But for him to talk about the sacrifice that he's going to make coming in here, being with these other two guys, plus the collection of talent that they have surrounding him, he mentioned how he's all in team first about what they need to do once again when it comes to a championship.
Yeah, look, we have talked a lot this summer about what he said about Joel Embiid on his first day, right? That, we don't want Joel isolating all the time from the elbow. And I think all of us agreed, but in the back of your mind, you do have to think to yourself like, well, yeah, but that also means, you're not going to be able to do everything you want at any given time too, right, Paul? And so to hear him come into training camp with the mentality of, look, like I'm not the only guy here. I'm not the one who needs to be the featured guy all the time. Now, that also has not been Paul George's MO for a long time, right? I think one of his best traits and one of the reasons that he was such an appealing free agent to these guys is that he can be a shapeshifter, right? There are stretches of games where he's just going to bomb away from three. He's spacing the floor. He's helping out the other guys. Like when he's playing in LA, he's playing off of Kawhi. He's playing off of Russell Westbrook in OKC and so on and so forth. And you'll get that guy here. But there are times, and we heard it today from Nick Nurse, we heard it at other times this week, having Paul George around to be a guy who can bring the ball up the floor is something that's going to help Tyrese Maxey, right? Because when teams throw 90 feet of defense at Tyrese, you don't want to wear him down in that way, right? You want him to be able to, okay, this is a possession off, or at least a possession where you're taking a step back. You're not having to dominate the ball. You're not having to play through aggressive blitzing coverage all the time. And so Paul has a great attitude coming in here. This is not about, hey, I'm the big max signing. I need this. I need that. It's what do the Sixers need? What does this group need? What can I contribute on a play-to-play, game-to-game, week-to-week basis? That's not going to be the same thing every day. Sometimes you're going to need him to lead. Sometimes you're going to need him to follow. And so I think that is helping really drive home what I think has been the theme of this week, which is there is one goal, and it's many, many months ahead, right? It's a lot of games. It's a lot of battles, a lot of practices ahead. And that is all these guys seem to care about, right? That's not to say the regular season doesn't matter. That's not to say we won't get some of these incredible individual performances from these guys, because there will be some highlight reel moments for each and every one of these guys this year. But they're not wrapped up in, I got to hit, 20 plus every single night. I got to get this many shots, this many threes. It's how do we come together and sacrifice and build the best version of this team that we can and achieve something that, quite frankly, none of these guys have climbed the mountaintop before. So I'm loving everything I'm hearing from Paul, but also the rest of the guys about this shared vision and the shared goal that they have right now.
And that was just simply time to go out there and show it. Right now, we still have to wait. What is it, the 4th now? So we're still about 20 days away from the start of the regular season. But for us to hearing what they have to say, seeing them at practice is cool, but sharing what they say, now they have to go out there and show and prove to make sure that the words, the play actually follows what the words and the meaning of those words have for everyone. Because this is, as we know, this is it for them. Now they have a 2-3 year window with this group to see what happens, what actually happens. However, when you get this type of excitement, Sixer fans have been disappointed, let down. The excitement level goes up. Season ends, of course, it drops like a stone, man. It just in the ocean, it just drops because it's so deflating. As
at least here in the Bahamas, you can
seen.
see that stone at the bottom of the ocean.
You are not
the water's
kidding.
So clear.
You're not kidding. And folks, even when we're outside on our balconies, Kyle and I are only one room apart, and we can look out on our balcony and the water is right there and is even clear from the distance that we are from the beach. But yeah, but in that clear water, the emotion and all that you put into it, you get frustrated. And again, you just lose it all right there, just simply because of how disappointing the season ends. So for this stuff to be said, and we've had it now for years, Kyle, where Sixer fans have, whether it was you at your old place in the past, myself at the old place, and Derek, the same thing, where the regular season would start, the excitement is there, you get all of these fans are excited, but then there's still a big number of Sixer fans that are like, yeah, I'll wait until we get to the playoffs. And that's why I'm like, hey, everybody, you can't fast forward to 82. Enjoy it from October to April, and then we'll get there. And I understand that we all agree that the meaningful part is the postseason, but you have to get through that regular season to see things come to fruition, to see things play out the way you want to see the growth of Tyrese Maxey and how good he is, to see all of the plans of Nick Nurse and the coaching staff come together, to see the chemistry that Joel Embiid has talked about so much at the end of the offseason has been a big theme of this summer, which is that chemistry, that cohesion that they need to have on the floor. All of that stuff is built. But for them to get out there and show it, to say it right now, to get out there and then show it, as we've talked about, everybody's smiling in training camp. It's all good. So are the Charlotte Hornets. The Detroit Pistons are smiling. They know they can't win, but they're smiling and they're having a good time. So when it comes down to the guts of it all, them winning some meaningful games, getting into the postseason after establishing the identity of who they are, the winning habits of who they are, the roles being established from what they've done throughout the season, that's where it really hits. But for right now, to hear Paul George and Joel Embiid specifically say the things that they are saying, it is really encouraging. And to hear George speak about all of that today with that sacrifice. Look, when the season starts, like we said yesterday, Joel Embiid's not worried about this one thing, this other individual thing. Yeah, but like Kyle mentioned yesterday, when the ball tips or when he's feeling a certain way and they're trying to tell him no, he is going to curse them out because he is going to want to play. That's the competitive nature. So during the regular season, when we see this, they're going to want to get their 20. They're going to want to get their 30. They're going to want to get their touches. They're going to want to make the all-star team because it's getting closer. And they're going to want to surpass the Boston Celtics as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, because who doesn't want to have that seeding? And Paul George said it today. He thinks that they are top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. He respects the others, but he thinks that they're a top 3 seed. So all of the things that they're saying, that's a winning mentality of what they need to do. And we've all talked about some of the past playoff failures, if you will, of Paul George, but also highlighting some of the good things that he has done in the past as well. He has already felt the losing. So has Joel Embiid, and in Tyrese Maxey's young career, so has he. So for them to get to that late May, June conversation of us doing our shows, you guys getting excited about everything for the postseason. This is at least the talking piece. You want to hear this stuff that they're saying right now in hopes that it translates.
Yeah. So, and I want to bring in a question from our close friend of the show, Martian Lynch, because Martian took the time to not write in all caps and make a joke at one of our expense. So I feel like we got to reward positive behavior, just like a coach would at a practice. Martian asked Kyle, how will the Sixers maintain ball movement and prevent stagnation in a lineup that features 3 high usage players? And, some of that, Martian, just comes down to exactly what these guys are saying, right? Like they have to get into a mental state where it isn't about my touches and my this, my that. And it's more of, how do we make the best organic, free flowing offense that we can, right? And so, when we talk about with Joel specifically, right, some of that is iterating off of where he's already so dominant, right? So that elbow high post area is sort of his bread and butter at this point. It's where he really went from, high level all-star, even like all NBA player, to MVP top 5 guy in the league type of talent. And it's going to be using the attention he gets there to actively pass out of those situations, right? And we saw that last year. In the beginning of that season, before Joel's injury, before the season went off the rails a bit, he was looking for those cutters coming out of the corner, for the guys that are coming off a movement as shooters and trying to be more of that jumbo quarterback in the middle of the floor. Well, now think about how much more he might do that if he knows, hey, on the other side of this pass, rather than Tobias Harris on the other end of the floor, that's going to be Paul George, or that's going to be potentially Tyrese Maxey coming off of a screen elsewhere. The other part of it is, like, Paul George, as I said earlier, he's going to handle the ball. And Paul is in a mentality of, yes, he's going to hunt for his own shot. Yes, he wants to get his to some extent, but he's already vocalized, like, how can I get Joe easier shots, those little duck in type plays out of pick and rolls, or, just playing in 2-man combination play, using Tyrese as the inverted screener. We haven't seen him do that tons, but I do think that's a way where you can use all that muscle that Tyrese put on, use him as a screener a little bit more, and then use him as that quick catch and shoot or get downhill type of guy. There's just going to be a lot of these little, like, 2-man combinations and different sets, different looks that they can throw at teams. And it's going to be trying to balance out kind of all that. I think playing off of that, I think the bigger question, frankly, will be who can rise to the top as a role player here, right? We know to some extent that Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre are going to be at or near the top of that list of the other guys. But when we talked to Nick Nurse, brought up Ricky Council today, and we'll get into some in-depth stuff with him. But Nick essentially said something where he was like, we need him to be a rebounder. We need him to play hard. We need him to take and make those quick threes on the swing type situations around the perimeter. And you listen to that and you say, well, that applies to basically everybody who's not named Joel Embiid, Paul George, or Tyrese Maxey. And so that's why I think it's going to be so interesting to see who rises out of this group of what we'll call the others, because they all broadly have the same responsibilities. You are there to kind of provide the support around this big three. And the big three's job is to go out every night and probably score 80 plus points a game combined, right? Like somewhere 75 or 80 points is not an unreasonable place to get for that group. And so I think between those three, there are plenty of touches to go around. And Martian, like, really to underscore it, I think it is part of the beauty of signing Paul George specifically. He is not someone who comes in and is like a Jimmy Butler, where it's like he's got to have the ball in his hands, right? Like that's a big part of his value. Paul George could play an entire game, take nothing but spot up, catch and shoot threes, and make an absolute monster impact on the game. And frankly, be pretty happy with how his night has gone. So some of it comes down to that hand in glove fit, but some of it is also setting the egos aside iterating on what already works for all of them and understanding my touches aren't always going to lead directly to my shots. It's about what works best for everybody.
So the first thing, just to add on to that with Martian's question, is just simply, hey, for me, it's all about the unselfishness, as Kyle started off the conversation with it all. And we know that Tyrese Maxey is that way. We'll see him with the ball in his hands as we continue to talk about that natural progression as a floor general, as well as being a scorer, finding that balance between the two. And Paul George has done it in the past. Embiid doing the same thing at the beginning of last year before the injury took him out for a while. It was there. So if that unselfishness is there and you get the guys doing what they're supposed to do within the half court set, the flow of the offense, I think everybody will get a fair amount of shots. Even with that 80 points that you bring up, Kyle, I mean, 25 and 25 right there for that 50. And we think it's probably going to be a little bit higher for when Embiid is playing, but 25 for Maxey, 26, Paul George somewhere around that 23, 22, 23 range. They're going to score their points. It's just a matter of where everybody else falls into play, and also keeping those guys engaged, making sure that those others, as Kyle mentioned, they do get their opportunity, that the others are available to have those shots, to get into a flow, to get into a rhythm. Those three are not going to win every game for the Sixers of the 50 plus that they win. Someone else is going to have that big game that we're talking about post game. Oh, look at Eric Gordon coming in and knocking down those 7 threes, or Kelly Oubre deciding that he wants to go ballistic and drop his 25 and lead the team in scoring that particular night. And then that'll naturally branch off into another conversation of, as Kyle mentioned, is this other the one that's going to step up when they do get to the postseason? And we are highlighting that player for that particular series against whatever team that might be. So all of that stuff will be there, but it's just all about the unselfishness. And with the big three, it's the other guys just stepping up to the challenge of when they do get their opportunity, not pressing, but going out there and scoring within the flow of the natural point of the offense and for what they do, and not pressing. When you do that, of course, most times it turns out to be a negative more than it is a positive. So that will be an interesting development overall with it. Martian has some more questions. We'll get to him as well with another one on the other side. But we do have to take a quick break here, come back, talk about a few other things, as today was really our show day here at the Bahamas for day number 4 of training camp. We'll come back, discuss much, much more right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast, which is presented by our good friends, and we thank them for taking care of us all week long. Rothman Orthopedics.
Big thank you to Rothman as always, man.
Huge thank you. Are your joints aching? I'm sure after the guys practice as much as they have some tough practices this first week of practice, joints aching, hands cramping, back out of whack. If they didn't have the physicians that they did have there, I would say, hey, from each man, you got to go to Rothman Orthopedics. Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, practicing specialized care has been their passion for over 50 years, and their mission: high quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser focused on specialties from hip, knee, spine, you name it. They take care of you right in your own backyard. Rothman's again, proudly serve dozens of communities across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, with 30 plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. Very convenient for you, so you don't have to look too far. Very easy to find. And for more than 50 years, Rothman has participated in thousands of groundbreaking research and clinical trials with the goal of advancing knowledge, developing treatments, and improving outcomes for the benefit of our patients. I'm one of them. That's why I say our. Rothman Orthopedics specializes in you and all of us, everybody. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
Hey guys, look, we haven't had many day-to-day annoyances down here in the Bahamas. Hard to be annoyed when you got beautiful weather, you got basketball, you got some good people around you. But once we're back home and the pressures of day-to-day life are here, I'm thinking about those, and I'm thinking about choosing chill, stepping aside and going to grab an ice cold Coors Light. With Coors Light, you know you're getting an ice cold beer because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans right as they hit that perfect, refreshing temperature. Look, we still, if we really wanted to, we probably could find some ways to
Yeah,
get annoyed down here, right, Devon? Just
yeah.
some little small. Oh man, we have some rain while it's
Yes,
85
we
degrees
did.
out, and
Yes, we did.
it's you're ruining my pool time, and I want to just get mad at Mother Nature for messing up our wonderful time here in the Bahamas. Always take a step back. Remember, we are still having a great time, and we can have an even better time afterward once we grab a Coors Light that is cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged for a smooth finish and get that mountain cold refreshment where there are no mountains to be seen, Devon. You can still
No,
get it. So when
no.
you guys choose to rise above it all, I want you to choose chill and choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And frankly, guys, if you don't think I'm about the choose chill lifestyle, I am really on brand wearing a damn hoodie in the Bahamas right now. I'm sitting in my hotel room about as
Chilling.
chill as humanly possible in a place where it has not been any cooler than 80
Yeah.
degrees every single day we've been here.
But our hotel, as soon as we walk in our hotel lobby,
Ooh,
freezing, freezing.
they
Choose and
are not messing
chill.
around.
Choose and chill here in the Bahamas. That when the mountains turn blue, it's as blue as that water that we see out there
Oh,
in
yeah.
the ocean. So yes, folks, we've been choosing chill. We almost had to get Derek one of the Coors Light to choose chill one day. He was hot, but
He
we'll
was.
leave that. We'll
And
leave
now
that
we do
there.
have people asking about Derek. Derek is on a flight back. He's heading home a little earlier than we are. Obviously, everyone send your safe travels, your best wishes to our guy Derek. I believe he's probably still sitting in the airport currently, but he's
Yes.
in transit. Devon and I are on duty for the final morning of Sixers training camp tomorrow.
And then we'll head home and we'll see you all on Monday as the
Yes,
Sixers
sir.
take on the New Zealand Breakers. We had the a majority owner, Matt Walsh, on yesterday. It was a fun conversation. I hope everybody enjoyed that one. Speaking to Matt Walsh about the Breakers and how all of that came together. All right, Martian with another question. Kyle says, how much can Embiid's experience in the Olympics help evolve his leadership, where he can rally the team in difficult situations, especially when facing elimination in the playoffs? Well,
You would hope so.
I would hope so. Yeah, Martian. I mean, that's something that we've been talking about since he's been there, right? And definitely after they clinched and won the gold medal. But it really went back to that Serbia game where he did what he did, played the way he did. I asked I asked Daryl Morey about it on our show on Media Day. And he talked about how he feels like something like that is definitely beneficial for Embiid, not ever winning Martian and being in an environment like that. And we cannot discount, you cannot just sit there and act like it wasn't nothing. Playing with Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James specifically, and others who have won on that roster also. Joel Embiid has never won anything. So for all of that stuff for him to experience it, the way we've seen him here in this training camp, media day, we'll leave that alone. He's always cool on media day. But for him to be at training camp and be in this way, being in the good mood that we talked about, and we say everybody's in a good mood. Charlotte, Detroit, everybody feels like they're all good and they can win. But for him to be in a good mood, not that he's bad guy and he's surly all the time or anything, but just to see him when we went to Kyle, when we stopped by his the appearance that he had for the court for at the six-man community center where the court was named in honor of his late brother Arthur, how cool he was there with the kids. We spoke to him afterwards. He was in good spirits there also. And then getting here and seeing him not just on the floor, but because he hasn't practiced doing drills. Folks, we've seen him in the lobby. We've seen him walking through the hallways. We've seen him, and we've heard other people who have seen him also. And he has been nothing but cool and a good guy like we have known him to be. And if that can carry over to the season and bringing that winning culture that he had with Team USA, learning some of the things that he may have picked up, sitting back, observing. He's not a big talker. So I'd imagine when he was there, he was sitting back really watching instead of asking a lot of questions from those other three stars that have won gold medals and NBA championships and MVPs. And for that, his type of leadership, while he spoke about Tyrese Maxey doing it in a different way, his leadership is also different because he's not a yeller or a screamer. He's to go out there and show it, but also talk more so whispering in your ear and telling you what you want. So his leadership style, plus what he did with Team USA Martian, observing and picking and tucking that stuff away for when the season comes, that is going to be something's going to come up during the 82 game schedule where he is going to have to be that leader, bringing out something that he observed and picked up from Team USA, and then insert that into their huddle or their locker room or a conversation on the side with one of his teammates, where I think he will do something like that. And I think it's more positive than anything, more than anything negative from Joel Embiid for the experience that he had in Paris with the Olympic team and what he should bring back to this bunch.
Devon, can I just offer some breaking news right now? I believe we have an imposter Martian Lynch in the chat. I believe we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, led astray.
Oh, no.
Somebody, here's how ingrained
what the
this
hell?
community is for this show. We have imposters of regular commenters on the show popping up and posing as one of our friends here of the show. So shame on you, imposter.
I didn't
Martian
recognize
Lynch.
the 33. I didn't pay attention to see.
No, I think 33 is the original.
33 is there. Oh man.
I'm just saying,
no.
I've got to be really careful who we're giving airtime to around here. This is something. So anyway, setting that aside. So here's what I would say, Devon, as we maybe get into a little bit of what our headline looks like today. And maybe I just lost Devon to bad Wi-Fi here because his face is frozen. So look at that. The Kyle Neubeck solo hour with Bree behind the boards. We're going to do this while we wait on Devon. This should be fun for a little bit. So for those of you at home, we're talking about the defense today with Paul George. And if we're talking about what you can learn from the Olympic experience on Joel's end, and maybe what you're applying about sacrifice, the defensive end is where you're going to see it for all of these guys, right? It's easy for Joel Embiid to buy in on offense where he's going to score 30 points a game and he's going to get a ton of touches. Paul George, same thing to a lesser extent. Same thing for Tyrese Maxey to a lesser extent. But once you get to the other end of the floor, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Like if Joel is not happy about the amount of touches he's getting, you're going to see that in the defensive effort and the rebounding effort. If Paul George is saying, hey, I want to be more involved on offense, generally where you see that manifest is on the defensive end, where a guy will maybe, let's say, have his head up a little less. Maybe we'll say he takes a lesser defensive assignment. He's not as much of a willing switch guy against the elite offensive players in the world. And so that is where I think you're going to get a real reflection of the buy-in for this group. And the good news is Paul George talked quite a bit about the defense today. I don't have the exact direct quote in front of me, but to paraphrase it for you guys, it was something to the effect of, we're already causing chaos and believe we're going to cause chaos for other teams on the defensive end of the floor. And he specifically highlighted that group of him, Caleb, and Kelly Oubre as a group of guys that are going to combine a lot this year to get into passing lanes, to shut guys down on the wing. And I think where I feel really good about this group, where I feel really good about their defensive chances, is that all those guys can kind of have it both ways, right? They're long, they're athletic, and they can guard individually, but they also have a good sense of when to gamble, when to stay home, when to attack the passing lanes. And so I think the best reflection of the impact they've already been able to make on this training camp and in this setting is that as we're talking to Jared McCain today after practice, he said the biggest adjustment as a three-point shooter he's had to make is not the longer line, which certainly is going to impact him at some point, but the fact that every guy that's on the floor feels like they're 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan. And you can only look at those three presumed starters as the source of the consternation that Jared is dealing with right now. So it's been I'm as excited as any of you guys are to see this team play, right? Because this is very much a Kyle Neubeck basketball team. You have the two-way elite guys in Joel and Paul. You have the ascending star in Tyrese Maxey. And I think everyone knows how high we are on Tyrese on this show. If anybody happened to miss the clip today that the Sixers posted, this might be a good time for super producer Bree to show the snapshot of training camp that was on the Sixers Twitter today, where Tyrese Maxey apparently decided he was going to hang with his two favorite people on the beat. And I suppose I could let the video show for itself who his favorite guys are on the beat. But the vibes are great. The two-way guys are here. I don't know when Devon is going to be back. I don't know if I'm fully capable of doing another half hour without Devon. So we're going to see exactly what happens here. Bree, this might be a time for you to also begin talking with me if you have any questions about what's going on here during the week. But maybe I'll just take some more questions from fake Martian Lynch unless somebody has better ideas. Yeah, Martian Lynch says he's the new co-host now. Look at that. Bree with an on-camera appearance on the show.
Actually, he's not here. I don't know. His Wi-Fi is gone. I do have that video loaded up though if you want to play it.
Yeah, sure. I don't know how difficult it is with the streaming setup versus our normal setup, but yeah, let it rip. We can watch the
Hey, Paul George, I'm a big fan, bro. PG. Thanks, Rick.
And you were a stud at Nevada, and your college career. What do you think you learned from that time in Nevada?
Just know how to win, you know what I mean? Get the ball, put it in the hole, and just know how to win, you know what I mean? I wish we would have matched up with Kentucky.
No, not when I was there.
So, as you can see, Tyrese hanging around myself and Derek to a lesser extent in most of those clips. And the other thing you could see, and Bree, you can attest to this, I do make fun of, can't have people shorter than me on the team. If you look at me standing next to Tyrese, you can see why. I wasn't making it up. There's no distortion of the wingspan on PHLY Sixers show. We are transparent about our measurements around here. So, Bree, what have you been excited about listening from afar about this season?
That's a really good question. Let's see. I mean, the obvious one is just PG. I do like the fact. Well, I did see this tweet yesterday about Tyrese's on-court vision. That had me.
Yeah,
that's funny. I'm not too sure. I mean, look. I mean, this team is obviously a lot better this season. It's just optic test, on paper test. It's obvious. I'm just excited for the season to start, honestly. I don't know.
We need a vibe reset for Philadelphia. Well, I guess pending what the Phillies do, obviously, because if the Phillies go on a run here, that'll kind of lift everybody's mood up around the city, except for our random Sixers and Yankees fans. Or Sixers and other team fans around the league or around the city. But with the Eagles right now, it feels like everyone needs a shot of positivity. And I mean, if nothing else, this is just a wildly different roster. It's almost actually, Jared was talking about this at camp today, where he said when he got drafted, he had no idea, kind of what the season would look like because they had 3 guys. It's me, Ricky, Tyrese, and Joel. That was the whole team at that point. And he hadn't even talked to Joel as a teammate until the last week or two. While it shows you the contrast in styles, by the way, between Joel and Tyrese, that Tyrese and Jared were golfing and working out in the summer. And Jared was talking with Paul George on his podcast, yeah, I'm nervous to meet Joel Embiid. He's so good and he's so famous. And I've been watching him play for, a long time. So there's a little bit of that newness factor to this team that I think at the very least, they needed a little bit of a karmic reset because so many people have been through the wars over the last, I don't know, let's say 5 years or so with this team. I'm starting to think, by the way, that Devon just decided he was done working because this is there's no way it takes this long to get back on the Wi-Fi. This is an absolute disgrace from
Well, here's
our
a question
co-host.
from Jay at Kyle. Having seen Yabusele in action, do you feel any different about his potential to start eventually?
So it's hard, right? Because most of what we see is just the post-practice shooting. And I have seen plenty of guys in that forum, in that format, put up make after make after make, who then go on to playing games and can't hit anything. Like the practice shooting versus in-game shooting is very different. But if I was trying to translate what we see post-practice to what you'd hope for in a game, he's looked really good as a shooter in practice. And I think what's interesting to me is that they're working with him on things beyond just standstill spot up shooting, right? Because I think that's something that if you don't have to move and you're just taking set shots over and over again, he can probably hit, high 30s, maybe if they're really fortunate, 40% on the dot on those types of shots. The question will be, as teams double Joel, as teams load up on Tyrese and Paul in the middle of the floor, how does he handle being a relocation shooter or a guy coming off of a screen, a guy kind of scrambling at the end of a shot clock and then putting up a three? That's a little bit of an open question, and more than a little bit. It's definitely an open question. And they're working through things like that with him. And that's an encouraging sight to me, because if you're relegating him only to those standstill shots, that's a hard way to make a living as an offensive player in the league today. As we got a message from Devon that just says, "I'm trying." I don't know what that means. That's just like, it's a binary. Either you're on the show or you're not. So yeah, I think what I've seen from Yabusele is encouraging, but frankly, I think we need to see a lot more in terms of in-game stuff before we can make any kind of read on it. The good news, it's good and bad, right? I don't think Joel's going to play much in the preseason. I think Paul George will probably slow play it. I think a lot of the older veterans will, let's say, ramp up. We'll use the phrase ramp after we spent James Harden's ramp was like the story of last offseason. I think guys like Yabusele, guys like Ricky, guys like KJ are going to have an abundance of time and opportunities over the next few weeks. And so that'll either he sinks or he swims, but he will have all the opportunity in the world to try to make an impact on this team.
Cool. Do you want to talk about, I saw in that 60-second short, you were talking about meeting up with McCain. Who else was there? Bona.
So the pool here, I don't know if anybody has actually been to Atlantis. I feel like people even who haven't gone know of it. It's like a pretty famous resort, hotel, or whatever you want to call it. So the big pool has, I think, like 4 or 5 water slides. It's got another pool adjacent to it. And yesterday we were like, all right, let's go head down. We'll have some beverages and we'll get set up by the pool, get some sun. And we got a heads up on the way over. Apparently they were filming social content for, I don't know if it's TikTok, I don't know if it's, and Jared, Dembona, and Justin Edwards were getting after it on the slides. And obviously that's been one of the fun things about this setup is we're all on the same property. And you just, you turn a corner and you might see somebody from the team playing craps or playing blackjack at the casino. And then you go outside and the Dembona and all 6'10" of him are waiting to get into the same tiny water slide that we're all fitting into, which is just like a funny image to deal with. So that's the fun thing of it. It's a lot more rubbing elbows than in Vegas, for example, where people are so spread out that you're going to see a lot of people, but you don't run into them as often individually. So it's been a nice feeling of togetherness between the team, the media, and everybody that's here. And I think that's probably going to translate to what we see on the floor in the early days. I think probably Bree hit our friends, a couple of our partners here, and maybe after that's done, we can get Devon back.
He's back
On the show with us. Is he back?
He's back.
Oh no way! You're really milking it over there, man. You just had to bring in Bree for like 10 to 15 minutes because you were taking a bathroom break and pretending it was the Wi-Fi. So
yeah, man.
Just in time to read some words from our friends. So everybody will be right back to close it out and then close out our training camp shows here on the PHLY Sixers show.
The coconut Wi-Fi, man. Coconut Wi-Fi.
The coconut Wi-Fi is right. Well, guys, I talked about choose and chill. I talked about having drinks by the pool. I have to tell you about a game-changing product I used before a night out with drinks, but here it's more like a day out with drinks. It's called Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol because let's face it, guys, after a night with drinks, I'm in my mid-30s. I don't bounce back the way I used to. I have to make a choice. I either have a fun time this night and this day, or I have a great next day. But that was until I found Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. I gave pre-alcohol a try numerous times at this point. First one came right after we came back from Vegas, after we went through quite an ordeal there with late nights and lots of choose and chill. I drank it before I had my first beer of the night, and you would not believe how on top of my game I felt the next morning when we had to get to work and go do our jobs. There are lots of events in your life you want to be on the ball for. You want to have fun, but you don't want to ruin the rest of your day, the rest of your week, even vacations, weddings, birthdays, reunions, trips to the Bahamas. There's so much going on. So get the most out of your plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/PHLY Sixers. Get 15% off your first order when you use PHLY Sixers at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/PHLY Sixers. Use the code PHLY Sixers at checkout for 15% off. Thank you to Z-Biotics for sponsoring this episode and all of our good times.
Want to tell you about some preseason action in the NBA today. The Denver-Boston matchup overseas. They got off to an early start, and if you wanted to place a wager on that game, you could have done so with our good friends from Bet365. They have over 90 million users worldwide. Early payout offers across the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. Got a big baseball game in the city starting off the NLDS tomorrow. So if you're feeling good about the home team and you want to put something down on them to take care of business in game number one, Bet365 is the place for you to go. They have pioneered Bet365 live in-game betting. And today, Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. And if you want to open an account right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in bonus bets. And those bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. So if you want to jump in, again, download the Bet365 app, use code PHLY365, sign up to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right.
He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
As long as I'm still here, let's get to it.
I'm still standing.
So where do we leave off, Kyle?
We didn't leave off anywhere. I talked for 15 minutes with Bree about the roster and Paul George saying that the Sixers are ready to cause chaos. I guess it's appropriate that on the episode that we said the Sixers are ready to cause chaos, that we did an impromptu 10 minutes solo talk from me and Bree jumped on the stream. It's just chaos everywhere, buddy.
Teamwork. We back each other up. We pick each other up. We uplift. All of that great stuff. But yeah, that chaos, man. Look, we've talked about, even when we were messing around with the lineups for Team USA, when we were getting creative, and I'm like, look, put Bam, AD, and Joel out there on the floor. Let's have some fun. And for this particular group, the one thing that I also thought was interesting that Nick Nurse said, Kyle, was when we speak about the defense from the three wings and Joel Embiid, He's talked about Tyrese Maxey's defense and where he wants that to be and how improved he needs that to be, how he's gotten better, but still has a ways to go for him to be that defender that they all hope that he can tap into that potential and being a guy that can cause havoc there. And that comes from, again, the effort, moving your feet, making sure you're in a good spot, the reads are right, and just being competitive because you know that they're going to try to pick on you. They're going to try to hunt you down. Are you up for that challenge? And I think he is. But to have those other three guys causing that chaos around him, having someone like possibly Ricky Council. I don't know if you got into Ricky yet because of some of the stuff that Nick Nurse wanted to talk about Ricky, that he could be a candidate for that. KJ Martin as well, coming in off the bench, being a candidate to that. And I don't know where Yabusele fits into that, but a bigger body at that 4 spot where, again, Drummond, Embiid, Yabusele, you get into that painted area and you think it's going to be easy. You think it's going to be sweet. And you have just these long arms of the law everywhere trying to get in there and disrupt not only your vision, but of course, getting that shot off at the rim. So the fact that they have, where we were enamored by KJ Martin coming in with Nick Batum, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, to actually have some wings. The one thing about those three, minus KJ Martin, they were all older. Now you have Paul George, who is still the older one, but still has some defensive stuff there left in him. Kelly Oubre has been in the league for 10 years. Caleb Martin has been around for a while also, but they are still young enough where they have young legs, the wingspan, the prototypical wing body that you ask for. And then you bring in and insert some of that youthfulness from KJ Martin, Ricky Council, as we mentioned. And you would have to think of motivated Yabusele when he does come into the game for how he can help out in that manner as well. To see that on the floor, it's a storyline that I cannot wait to see. Since they keep talking about it, we've discussed it. If that's going to be the three guys in the starting lineup, which it appears to be, I cannot wait to see the havoc, the problems, the frustration that they cause on the other side, where you see Kelly Oubre sometimes on the other end of it, creating some silly fouls because he's so frustrated by how good the defense is. Got the steal, they're going the other way. Now they commit a silly foul to take away, again, a new rule in this league where you cannot take those take fouls in the open floor, or else it's going to be the ball plus some free throws for the opposition. So for them to now have it on their side with what Daryl Morey, Elton Brand in the front office have built and constructed, to see that as part of their defensive game plan, their defensive identity, and then to have the big fellow on the back end, to have Andre Drummond on the back end, I am very, very, very excited to see what that actually looks like when all 5 of them are on the floor together.
Yeah, so let's just pretend that you said that after I said what I said earlier, and that was a nice clean segment that we got
Mix it in
through.
together, man. Mix it in.
So here's what I would say. I'll build off that, and I'll build off the Tyrese stuff, because I think if anything, the most consistent thing we've heard, but also seen the whole week, is that Tyrese is just ever present everywhere, right? We saw it where he played the clip from the practices this week where he's hanging out with Derek and I. He's getting involved in the media scrums and he's vocal there. And that's been every day. That he's done stuff like that in the past, but it's been, maybe like once a month or so. But he's getting up close and personal every day, doing that. And everything we're hearing from practice is like, this is the guy who's leading with his voice, right? And using his voice. And it's just different than, Paul George and Joel lead, but they don't lead necessarily in that way. It's not as much of a hands-on, constant yapping type of thing. And as we're talking about this defensive stuff, I think Tyrese has vocalized over and over again, he doesn't want to be the weak link in that chain, right? He looks at Caleb and Kelly and Paul, and certainly the big fella on the back end of things, and he says, look, if we're going to be switching 1 through 4 with that group, I don't want to be the guy that the other team looks at and says, that's the guy we want to pick on. He wants to be able to be, and maybe that's not realistic, right? Because he's smaller. They're just going to be size challenges against certain matchups, but he's trying to do every possible thing, whether it's physically watching tape, working on his, off-ball reads and off-ball attentiveness, things like that, so that he can build that strong chain between the group. And I think it's a reflection of a bigger thing and something we've talked about all week, Devon, something we've heard all week, which is he's taking ownership of this team. And that's what that looks like, right? It's not just buying in and doing the things that are fun for you or that you get a lot of touches on offense and that's all you have to do. Like, I'm an offense guy and that's all I have to worry about. I think taking real ownership of a team, being a max guy, is saying, I need to impact the game all over the floor on both ends, no matter who I'm matched up with, no matter how much I'm giving on the other end. There's always a little something more that I can add to the floor. And so that's what excites me about that approach from Tyrese, right? It's not because I expect him to come in and all of a sudden he's prime Tony Allen and oh my God, he made this cosmic leap. It's because when a guy who is so essential on offense says, yeah, I'm that good and I can score 25 a game and I'll get 6-7 assists a night and do all these amazing things. But that's not an excuse for me to go on the other end of the floor and check out. Like, I still have to show up. I still have to help support these other guys who are better defenders than me, who are picking up slack for me to some extent. And so I love seeing that. I love hearing that it's not acceptable to him to just be like, whatever. Like, I'm not that good of a defender and I never will be. And I think it's the thing that most people admire about Tyrese is that there are no excuses. It's like, I will do everything I possibly can until the season is over. And it makes him an easy guy, an easy player to root for sure.
Yeah, it really does. So, very curious to how all that plays out, man. These guys are prideful guys, and if he doesn't want to be the weak link and he wants to hold up his end of the bargain, then I'm sure that he'll make sure that he goes out there and give it his best effort on the defensive end. Just don't be overly aggressive, over pursuing on things and picking up some silly fouls. So that's that with him. All right. As we get ready to wrap things up here, did you get into the Ricky part at all for Nick Nurse and discussing Ricky?
No, I mean, I would say we kind of got into it earlier, but it's he is in, to me, I don't know if this will play out on the floor, but to me, he's just in that bucket of players that they could be anywhere from about the 8th guy in the rotation to completely out of the rotation. It is not a set in stone group, right? And while we probably think that KJ Martin's getting moved at the deadline and it's not necessarily a big priority to play him, I think what we saw last year is that Nick Nurse generally was inclined to play him over Ricky for a lot of the year and for a lot of the same opportunities. And then you add somebody like a Yabusele to the mix, and while the skill sets are not exactly the same, there is overlap there. And there are only so many minutes that are going to go around when you have 3 real deal wings the way they do, 3 guys that expect to play heavy minutes. Those backup forward and wing minutes are not going to be plentiful. And so the key for Ricky, I think, is going to be, as with a lot of these guys, the shot, because we know he can slash. We know he can get to the free throw line. That was talked about a little bit today at the end of practice with Nick Nurse. Yep. But if the shot is there, then all that stuff becomes so much more valuable because teams are not going to be able to leave him alone, and he can put teams in rotation. He's got the ability to pass and play make off the dribble. Saw that with that incredible rat pass he threw in San Antonio last year, help win that game. That was one of the more improbable victories I think they had all season.
Nick Batum with the no-dip 3.
And I think they'll miss Nick Batum, by the way. He came up we've had some meetings and dinners and whatnot throughout the week. And I do know it was driven home. The Sixers would have loved to have him back. It just got to a price range where it would have impacted other things, right? And I think at the end of the day, spiritually, family stuff, like just he wanted to be in LA, and that was everyone respects him for that choice. So that opens up some depth forward, depth wing minutes that otherwise a guy like that would be playing. We'll see who steps into it. You're muted, Devon.
Hopefully we get to see Ricky a lot this preseason, and he takes some of those minutes. He may not take them all, but he takes some. Being on the floor, we'll find out. We'll find out what Nick Nurse and the coaching staff thinks of him. Before we wrap things up, get to our roll call in just a bit. We got to tell folks about our little fun time at the pool a little bit. The guys out there.
You already missed it. We had the fun time talk with Bree. Bree already preempted you on that one, buddy. Right. What happens when you miss half the show?
That is it, man. That is it. That is it. So it was fun though, man. It was fun.
Yes.
Just to give my perspective of it, I went first. I'm sure Kyle told you guys about it, but I went first.
Big water slide, baby.
And going down, look, I don't like adventurous things, these daredevil type things of jumping out of an airplane or some of these other things that people like to do. I don't even need to go scuba diving or any of that kind of stuff. But I don't mind.
I'm not a scuba guy either. There's too much that can go wrong down there.
Right. I do like roller coasters, and I like water rides as well. So that didn't bother me at all. The only thing was, when you look down, forget about the fact that you see the water part with the sharks and all the stuff. Are you like, hold up? Are we going down in the shark pool there? Even though we know you're not, the way that you see it, the optics of it make it look like that. But as soon as you go down, they tell you to cross your arms and cross your legs. And I looked immediately. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. How steep is this and where are we going? Which is why they tell you to cross your arms and cross your legs. And we were moving so fast going down that thing, man. By the time I got to the bottom, I'm like, all right. As Derek said, keep your eyes open, because if you know this is the end, just see that it happens. So there's no surprises. So I had my eyes open, went straight down and got into the pool. Water got all in my nose, and I was like, oh, a little bit. Kyle, I'm sure you mentioned it got in your ear and you were worried about hearing and stuff.
I still have swimmer's ear, so
yeah.
Good luck trying to talk to me for the next 3 weeks or so.
But it was fun. It was a fun ride, and got to see the guys doing the same thing, going down the slide. And we saw multiple. I mean, first day we saw a Sixers player, and then yesterday we saw quite a few of them, and they were also doing it. I think one of the other people were talking to one of the players about his experience on the ride and how cool it was. But it was fun. It was a fun time. I'm glad that Vince and made sure that we were out here for this. We appreciate Rothman Orthopedics for sponsoring our trip, being such a gracious partner that they have been from the Summer League to where we are now. They're also going to hang out with us during the preseason as well, and we'll see where things go from there. But we thank Rothman Orthopedics. We appreciate Bet365 for also being our presenting sponsor for our training camp coverage, as well as the preseason that gets underway on Monday. And we'll have our 3 p.m. show, it looks like, on Monday, not pre and post, for the New Zealand Breakers. We'll have some of that coverage throughout the preseason, but on Monday, it looks like at least that we are going to be doing our 3 p.m. show and then head over to the arena for the game. So thank you to Rothman Orthopedics. Thank you to Bet365. Thank you to the Sixers for helping us out and giving us the ability to be around the players and getting all the things that we need. It's been a fun time here at the Bahamas.
And it's been a fun time, except for when Devon goes off the Wi-Fi. So that'll start our roll call, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap things up here in a beautiful locale for training camp. Just want to say thank you to all our friends, family, frenemies, and imposters in the chat. I do not know who the real Martian Lynch is at this point. I think it is Martian Lynch 33, but thank you to Martian Lynch for stopping through today. Don't know who this other guy is. Thank you to Jim G. Thank you to Brian Knight. Thank you to Money Mar. Thank you to our guy, Eugene Ross. Thank you to Jess. Thank you to our girl, Winona.
Jess. Hey, Nona.
In the building. We got Jay the Jungle in the building. We got
what
Darkness.
Up, turn the lights down.
Glenn Alston in the building. What's up, my friend? Who else do we have here? I saw Phi Chi in here earlier. Who else is in here today? Aaron hanging out with us. Rick Morse, Rick Sachs. We got a lot of old friends, new friends. Valhos in the building. Hey, thank you guys as always. We will be back on Monday for some game coverage. Until then, hit the subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, hit the
Thank you,
thumbs up
Bree.
to say thank you to Bree.
See
Goodbye.
ya.
We all silly like the